Before we get to SF, I want to ask you just a wild card question, because I know you're interested in statistics. I just know this.
Yes.
Now, when we were at Oberlin, there was a class
Yep.
called Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics.
Yeah.
I never took this class. And I know even in my master's degree, reading research studies, the statistics was the thing I did not understand.
Yeah.
I just left the null and all this stuff. I just said, okay,
Yep.
I take your word for this part. But one thing I do know about statistics from the little I've delved into is they're very easy to manipulate. And it's very easy to deceive with them. So I want you to make the case for statistics. If it's so easy to deceive with them, why bother?
Okay, well, there's a beautiful quote, and I wish I could remember the statistician who said it. But the quote is simply that it's very easy to lie with statistics, but it's much easier to lie without them. And it is definitely true. Believe me, I have gotten the data set from the most motivated researcher that said, I did this thing. I don't know what it is. Please, I need to publish something. Please help me. And I've been able to just stay up all night, just poking it and looking at it at different directions and shaking it up and turning it upside down and going back and sorry, man, there's nothing there. There's literally nothing there. So it is not infinitely possible to lie. You can't make numbers say whatever you want.
Right.
If you could, you're right. This would be a very strange world we would live in were that possible. But randomness follows rules. And if things are purely random, this is what they look like given enough time to keep doing their weird random stuff. And we just know that because you know that. Like at some point, you don't know that a 6-sided die will come up with each number 1 out of 6 times, and you can maybe just experiment, and after a while you just kind of trust that it does.
Yeah.
And then at some point you learn that dice aren't perfect physical objects. They are actual piece of plastic, might actually be a little heavier on one side, and then you start to wonder like, oh, maybe my dice are a little not perfectly weighted. So everything's sample size. You measure something enough times, you will find something weird. That is true, but that's what we've quantified. So that's what statistics is just knowing like, well, yeah, you did it 1,000,000 times. Of course, something that happens 1 in 1,000,000 times will have happened. So that's not interesting. But if you did it 5 times and something, 1 out of 1,000,000, something happened. All right, now we're going to stay, and stand up and take note.
Yeah.
And it's just knowing that's a 1 out of something number of times thing that has been solved mathematically by the statisticians. And so knowing all it, being able to apply those rules and help people understand whether what they have is on something unusual or something probably predictable or fairly mundane. For some reason, the eye can't tell you, and especially when people are invested because it's their little project. That's what the statistician does. And so it's a fun position to be in because you kind of break people's hearts and
right.
But then also like you find gold.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fool's gold, but you find it.
Sounds like you're kind of like the sharks of the scientific world, kind of cleaning up.
You're definitely fishermen, like
yeah.
Oh, I got a bite. Oh no.
Right. No, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's going to work.
And especially in education research, because you can, but we generally don't manipulate our learning environments systematically the way a psychologist would manipulate a lab environment. We don't have like sham education that we make people pay for thinking that they're getting a real education.
Right.
Just so that we can compare outcomes.
Though. That'd be fun.
Well, I guess we kind of do, but
not on purpose.
Exactly.
This group got no money whatsoever, and they thought they did. This group got all the money.
Come on.
Who did better?
I hope I'm in the experimental group.
Right. Placebo.
My PhD was a placebo.
That's right. I don't know.
Better luck next time.
Sorry.
Sorry.
We needed you for the research. Sorry,
That's
kid.
right. It's science.
Well, what about this? I've heard about this, and you can confirm or deny that there was an observable phenomenon where if a research study was repeated more than once, sometimes it's stopped working. Have you heard
Oh
about
yeah.
this?
Oh yeah. Oh
What's
no,
this
and it's a
about?
completely predictable thing. So okay, again, how do you come to the weeds with me?
Okay.
Let's go wading through the weeds. But so like I said, the thing that gets how did I become like the your resident statistician talking about this? Um may I have the next slide, please? Um the okay, so when you analyze a set of data, like I said, you're comparing it to sort of what you would expect if there was nothing going on here except God rolling dice. And um, when God rolls dice, sometimes weird things happen, but usually not. And that's the definition of weird. So if you got something weird, I can tell you that if this were just God rolling dice, this is a 1 out of 100 chance of something like this happening. That's called a p-value. And if it's very low, researchers get excited because they're saying, see, like I think this is a real thing. This isn't just random, like whatever. The drug seems to work
Yeah.
because, 10 people got better out of the 10,000 we gave it to. And I'll say, well, 10 out of 10,000, you would expect that to have my chance. But if you only gave it to 100, look, all right, maybe that is a result to take home. But the metric again isn't how likely is it that your drug works. It's how likely is it that if your drug doesn't do anything, you would have gotten these data. And so that metric, that p-value metric, is the thing that editors use to get something published.
Mhm.
So if you come to them with a result that doesn't have a low p-value, they'll say like, well, this is nothing, like you don't have any evidence. But if you come to them and say, oh, look, I have a p-value of 0.0001, they're like, statistically significant, and they will publish it. And so what happens is by far, most of those studies with statistically significant results are nonsense. There's nothing there. You just happened to get a result. And the reason for that is just, it's the infinite number of monkeys typing at an infinite number of typewriters. There's so many thousands and thousands and thousands of researchers doing so many thousands and thousands of experiments. And there's only a few like little nuggets of truth out there that we haven't found yet. Just the noise swamps the signal, and most of the published studies are actually wrong. And so when somebody finds something that looks like a really interesting, big, cool effect, and they get it published because they found statistically significant results, people read it and think, oh, I'm going to try that. And when they take it to their lab, most of the time it doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
But they would like to publish that, hey, we couldn't replicate this. But if they don't get a statistically significant result again, the journal editors are like, well, that's not, what
Oh
is that?
no.
That's
That-
dog bites man. Like, we're not going to publish that. We only have room in our journal for 20 experiments a month. And we have 500 submissions. I'm not going to publish your one that says we tried this and nothing happened, because that's not
well, then how do
interesting.
you clean up the mess?
Well, you don't. So what happens is you notice what you just said, which is that eventually someone can replicate it, but it generally has a smaller effect size because it's just another attempt to replicate something that doesn't exist. You just got lucky. But
Yeah.
generally, people don't get as lucky as the first guy who won the jackpot. And
But if
after a while, you just see this thing. The results just look like smaller and smaller effect sizes over time because,
but didn't you say the refutations don't make it to publication?
well, no, if you try it and it works, it generally doesn't work as well as it did the first time,
Oh, okay.
because that was the fluke. That was the reason that we're all
Excited.
chasing this little mouse around the house. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then after a while, people start to wonder, like, oh, I actually don't think this is a real thing. And then they'll kind of abandon it. It happens all the time.
Is there
Happens
a
all the time.
journal of that doesn't actually work?
There is a journal of non-replicable results that is
Good.
tries to, and then the new thing in social psychology is to register all your experiments ahead of time. So, and this is honestly the way I wish journals would do it this way, where you design an experiment, you write the introduction, the method section, and send it in, and they will accept it or reject it based on that. And if they accept it, then you can do the study. Technically, this is what grant proposals are, but not, then the grant people who gave you all the money want to see the publications, and then there's a bunch of perverse incentives for people to torture the data to death, or just run the experiment 100 times and just publish the one that worked. There's a really good researcher, his name escapes me right now, but he went to the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology and said, I have evidence of extrasensory perception. Here are my 6 experiments. I have demonstrated it in the lab that ESP is real. And of course, the journal was like, well, we can't publish that. That is nonsense. And he said, what do you mean? It meets every criteria for publication that your journal has. These are methods that are in all these other studies that you have published, and my results are completely comparable to everything that you've published recently. Why won't you publish this? And eventually they had to say, all right, fine, I guess we'll publish it. So there is actually, but everybody knows the reason he got those results is because he just ran his experiment over and over until he got something.
Oh, I see.
He was making a point.
Yeah.
So yes,
that's clever.
I could talk about this for hours, but
well, unfortunately, in this case, the weeds don't lead to music. I really wish. I'm fascinated by this discussion, but I think we lost some folks. So
I did write a piece in college that was based around statistics.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and I remember it ended with the pianist holding down the damper pedal and dumping a bunch of ping pong balls into the piano. That was the final. That was the final sound.
Did you call the piece Captain Kangaroo? Is that?
No, that would have been good. Oh, Mr. Moose.
That's right.
Miss you,
Thank
Mr.
God.
Moose.
Who remembers? That's wonderful.